Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison.
With over 700 military veteran journalists worldwide, it's your Rethinking Heroes Flash Briefing.
Stories from the front.
Cary Harrison with you with your Rethinking Heroes Flash Briefing, an update on national defense news and stories affecting service members, veterans, and all the rest of us. Well, the Army is changing the way it measures body fat on soldiers to make sure that its force remains fit for duty. When a soldier's weight is too much in relation to their height, the Army has relied on measuring the soldier and then using a complicated equation to determine if they have too much body fat. The measurements were taken at different locations for men and women, and soldiers often complained that it was inaccurate, and they were right. A study from the Army found that the tape test was only right about 65% of the time. Imagine if your blood pressure was only right about 65% of the time, you might die. This is just the weight. These are just the armed forces. And most often in the soldier's favor, no matter what the tape said. In other words, recruitment is tough, so that tape is too short, too long, who knows, who cares. During difficult recruiting times, creative math must be able to dismiss what the eye can plainly see. Ultimately, this can have a deleterious effect on a soldier's ability for accurate self-awareness, discrimination, nuance, and accuracy, particularly important when live in the field. Moving forward, the Army will measure soldiers only at one location, the navel, and then use a simplified calculation to determine body fat. For soldiers who fail and want to verify the tape test results, they can use a biometric scanner that has been approved by the Army. This may be the only nation where this is actually a problem. Most countries try to get their soldiers to gain weight, but uniquely, this is the first military force in all of human history where there are applicants that are somewhat interchangeable with passengers on a cruise ship. The Army will phase out the old tape test over the next year before doing away with it altogether, and these changes are in addition to one rolled out in March when the Army released the results of its study on body composition. Soldiers who score high enough on the Army's physical fitness test are exempt from meeting weight requirements, definitely an incentive to train harder. Service officials believe that with all three of these changes, the new tape test, allowing for biometric screenings and exempting high fitness scores, that they're going to be able to reduce that error rate down to zero. Practically speaking, the error isn't the measuring systems, but the culture that the Army is working assiduously to mathematically avoid taking head on. Decades ago, President John F. Kennedy pushed physical fitness for the entire population. And apart from too much smoking and drinking, people were generally in decent shape. But back then you had a fit president, which we also haven't seen in decades. However, it's important to get these measurements right because failing the body fat standards could hurt a soldier's career advancement or see them discharged from the Army. This is your Rethinking Heroes Flash Briefing. Now we turn to news that a soldier has pleaded guilty to charges that he attempted to help terrorists orchestrate an attack on his fellow soldiers. For more on that, we go to Rethinking Heroes' Rose Thayer. Rose.
Thank you, Cary. From Austin, Texas, this is Rose Thayer reporting for Rethinking Heroes. Army Private Cole Bridges had been consuming anti-American propaganda online when he began communicating with someone he thought to be an ally of the terrorist organization ISIS. He was actually speaking to an FBI informant. During these conversations, Bridges expressed frustration with the military and his desire to work with ISIS instead. He also offered advice on how to attack New York City. He pleaded guilty in a federal courtroom in New York and now faces a possible 20-year sentence for attempting to provide material support to ISIS and another 20 years for plotting to kill American military personnel. This news comes as a research report found that the most common link among Americans looking to commit a large violent attack is military service. Researchers with the National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism looked at thousands of suspects in attacks that were both thwarted by officials and carried out. Extremists with military backgrounds were nearly 2.5 times more likely to be classified as mass casualty offenders than those who never served. This study hits the Pentagon as officials struggle with how to root out extremists in the ranks. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has made this a top priority, especially after dozens of veterans and some active duty troops were found among the mob to storm the U.S. Capitol on January 6th in 2021. Now back to you, Cary, for an update on 22 American troops who were injured in a helicopter crash in Syria.
Rethinking Heroes Rose Thayer. The news is a sad reminder that the U.S. still has troops combating extremism overseas, even though the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have ended and the ones on our own soil are never properly evaluated. Well, a helicopter accident occurred in northeastern Syria, wounded 22 American troops, according to the military. The cause of the accident remains under investigation. However, no enemy fire was reported. 10 of the troops were moved out of the region to get medical care at a larger hospital. The crash involved a Chinook helicopter that had to make a hard landing as it tried to take off. About 900 U.S. service members are deployed to Syria, a country they've been working in since 2015. They advise and assist the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces in hopes to prevent a return of the terrorist group that we all remember known as ISIS. This is your Rethinking Heroes Flash Briefing. With climate change evident in every state, every wildfire, every flood, hurricane, modern tornado, in an ever-expanding exponential grip, Rethinking Heroes Rose Thayer has some positive news from the single largest consumer of gasoline in the world.
Yeah, that's right, Cary. While the Defense Department is one of America's largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, it's also on the forefront in some locations for thinking green. The Washington Post reports that a Marine Corps base in Albany, Georgia, has become the first in the military to reach its net zero goal. It can now safely say that it only consumes as much renewable energy as it produces. To do this, power plants generate electricity from natural gas, which is captured from a nearby landfill and a paper factory. Solar panels warm water for its barracks, and air that is chilled underground cools warehouses and other facilities. The Albany base has been a test site for how other bases can use their own renewable resources to think outside of the box. For Rethinking Heroes, I'm Rose Thayer. Back to you, Cary.
Special thanks to military reporter Rose Thayer for assembling your Rethinking Heroes Flash Briefing from Los Angeles and beyond. I'm Cary Harrison. Don't forget to subscribe and like to Rethinking Heroes wherever you get your podcasts, and follow and like us across all social media simply by looking for Rethinking Heroes.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
Cary Harrison here with an exciting radio gift benefit just for you. Rethinking Heroes has found one more way to help not only vets, but people like you. This is radio giving back for all the time you've spent with us. Rethinking Heroes has found an angel partner who's created a downloadable, fee-free discount pharmacy card to give you up to 90% off many of your meds. It's pegged to government-listed prices, so my $250 Lipitor is only $13. Unlike GoodRx, this bypasses the middleman. It's our Rethinking Heroes Capital RX thank you card with no fees ever, no credit cards, no expiration dates, no cookies, no tracking. Perfect for the modern listener like you dealing with a busted medical system. So accept this thank you gift and download your fee-free cards now at RethinkingHeroes.com. RethinkingHeroes.com. That's RethinkingHeroes.com. By the way, if this isn't a good reason to love this radio station, show me a better one.